finished the previous chapter, and he's talking, like Wanda said a minute ago. God's going to restore it to you. You just keep walking out your faith life, and God is going to restore it to you. And Job says, I know that's true. I know that's true, but how can mere mortals prove their innocence before God? How can I assure God that I'm blameless, because His wisdom is beyond my ability to answer? We're human. Even though he is asserting his innocence, Bob, we're in chapter 9 of Job. He's asserting his innocence. I don't deserve what I'm getting, and yet in a moment of clarity, he says, "But you know what? Even if I were innocent, my mouth would condemn me. I would eventually say something that would be out of line. That would reflect my imperfection within me." And there's that, he does have that recognition. Continued, down in verse 22. It is all the same. That is why I say he destroys both the blameless and the wicked. Well, let's go back, pick up verse 21. Although I am blameless, I have no concern for myself. I despise my own life. It is all the same. That is why I say he destroys both the blameless and the wicked. When a scourge brings sudden death, he mocks the despair of the innocents. When a land falls into the hands of the wicked, he blindfolds its judges. And then he says, if not he, who? What's he saying in that? See, I think he's saying, if it's not God, you tell me who it is.
Because it's happening.
Yeah, it's happening. Okay? And if this God is really as holy and righteous and caring for all of us as we think that he is, and yet we have the scourge that falls on the innocents, and we've got he destroys the blameless and the wicked in the same kind of way. He doesn't distinguish between the blameless and the wicked. And what's he mean in the first part of verse 24? When a land falls into the hands of the wicked, he blindfolds its judges. The judges pervert the justice.
Yeah, United States.
Just like it is today.
Here and 100 other places around the world, he allows the judges to mistreat those who are coming to them for justice. Okay? And then he says, if not he. Who's bigger than God? And if God is really that big, why can't he stop it? Isn't that the question that people are asking?
Yes.
Verse 32 says, he is not a mere mortal like me that I might answer him, that we might confront each other in court. If only there were... And listen to this. Listen. Okay? Chapter 9, starting at verse 32. I'll go back to verse 32. He is not a mere mortal like me that I might answer him, that we might confront each other in court. If only there were someone to mediate between us.
Ooh.
Someone to bring us together. Someone to remove God's rod from me, so that his terror would frighten me no more. Then I would speak up without fear of him, but as it stands with me, as it now stands with me, I cannot. Is that powerful or what? Verse 27. He says, if I say, I will forget my complaint, I will change my expression and smile. I will still dread all of my sufferings, for I know you will not hold me innocent. What's he saying there when he says, I will forget my complaint and I will change my expression and smile? Just put on a happy face. Okay?
And we do that.
Is that not part of our theology?
Absolutely.
Okay?
Yeah.
It is part of it. Now, do we all know that there are times that you just need to buck up? Of course. Of course. Okay? But how? If we're going to respond to this issue of why is there suffering in the world, and we're just going to tell people, well, just keep smiling and you'll get through it. What's the passage that says, they have healed my wound lightly? They have healed my wound lightly. And there's such a delicate thing here. Do we have to think and believe the right things? Well, of course we do. If you and I, somebody has said the answer to the question is the pitcher half full or half empty? It all depends on if you're drinking or pouring. Okay? And there are times when we do have to make a decision. I am not going to allow myself to go down a negative mindset pathway. I am not going there because I know what the end game is. Okay?
Yes.
But I think we're all also intelligent enough to know that just by doing a tap dance and pronouncing happy-tappy phrases, that doesn't change anything, and I'm not so sure it's faith. I'm not so sure it's faith. It may want to be faith. That may be the desire, but I don't think it quite gets there. Job goes on into chapter 10, and his comments just kind of continue to run over. Now here he says, okay, put on the smiley face, just keep smiling as you walk through this. And then chapter 10, verse 1, he says, but I can't be silent. I can't do that. I've got to be real. I've got to call it what it really is. You ever been there?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We try to put a positive spin. We try to talk our way out of something. And then at some point you come back and you say, you know what? Here it is. It is what it is. Verse 5 says, are your days like those of a mortal, or your years like those of a strong man, that you must search out my faults and probe after my sin? What's he saying?
Why you're on my case?
Yeah.
Why am I the target?
Yeah. Can we talk about that a minute, Linda? Because I have to tell you something, folks. One of my pet peeves about the church is everything good that happens to me is God, and everything bad that happens to me is the devil.
Yeah.
That's true.
And if you want to talk about the embodiment of simplistic thinking, that's it.
Yes.
That is it. And we all know that good can be judged in a highly subjective way. We usually judge good because it gets me something that I either want or would like to see happen. We all agree that we live in a world where bacteria exists, right?
Well, we do.
Okay? And we get sick sometimes because of the bacteria. Okay? So when you get a cold, don't blame the devil.
He gets more credit than he should.
Okay, absolutely. Do you see what I'm saying? And you know what happens? We lose credibility.
Yeah.
We lose credibility in the minds of thinking people who look at that and say, well, golly, something's not quite, I don't know what it is, but something's not quite right with that. Go on to chapter 11. It's almost as if Zophar is saying, will somebody shut this guy up? Will somebody tell this guy to put a sock in it? Are all,
Heresy.
Heresy, yeah. Are all these words to go unanswered? Is this talker to be vindicated? Will your idle talk reduce others to silence? Will no one rebuke you when you mock? You say to God, my beliefs are flawless and I am pure in your sight. Oh, how I wish that God would speak, that he would open his lips against you and disclose to you the secrets of wisdom, for true wisdom has two sides. And then I love this last line. Know this, God has even forgotten some of your sin.
You have so much that...
Yeah, Job is thinking, I'm getting hammered here for all the bad stuff I've done. That's why I'm going through all of this. And Zophar says, dude, God's forgotten forgotten some of your bad stuff. You're not getting everything you deserve. And he challenges him about grasping the mysteries of God. You can't grasp the mysteries of God or the limits of His capacity as God. They're well beyond your pay grade. If He recognizes you as evil and imprisons you as a result, can you stop Him? And then He finishes what He says, but if you will devote yourself. We're right back to the same reasoning, aren't we? Job, if you'll just devote yourself more.
Work harder, pray harder, read your Bible more.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me ask you a question. What's a good Christian? The issue is there anything we can do that would make us a good Christian?
No.
Good Christians are those who are walking in the grace of God. Okay. That's what makes you're either a Christian or you're not a Christian. And yes, certainly there are things that we need to do. Things that are part of a Christian's lifestyle and a part of us being formed in walking in a lifestyle that God would be pleased with. But the subtle things that come into play in our thinking about how we live out our lives can trip us up at times. Let's go to chapters 12, 13, and 14. This is what I thought I'd come upon before. Somebody read it. It's hilarious.
Doubtless you are the only people who matter, and wisdom will die with you. I love that.
I love it too. As if they had a corner.
Sarcasm.
As if they had a corner on wisdom
Yeah.
and a corner on understanding. Yeah. And then he goes on, he says, who doesn't know that what you've said is true? Who of us hasn't felt that trouble hasn't come to us? And doesn't that come at this issue of the righteous suffering? What do you do when you think you've done all the right things and you still find yourself with a business that goes upside down? Where we realize that life really doesn't always come out the way that we would like for it to. And what is it that holds us? We talked in one of our first weeks about why do we serve God or why do we worship God? And the solution we came to, or the kind of the idea that we built around, was we worship God because God is God. Okay? What do we do when everything that we have built our lives on all of a sudden goes up in smoke? Isn't that we talked earlier about faith, about grace being messy. And isn't our Christian life, the walking out of our Christian life, more messy than it is black and white? And that's not the right way to say it. More messy than it is neatly packaged and something you'd want to put under your Christmas tree. Well, it comes back to what our expectations are.
Yeah.
What is it and which ties perfectly with what we had talked about in the early sessions about whom do we worship and what is our expectation of worship. For many, the expectation of worship is that God will bless me.
I'll feel good.
Yeah.
And I'll get a spiritual high.
Yeah.
And the same thing correlates to what are our expectations for living our lives of faith with God. It's that I'll have everything that I need, that I will have. I'm sorry, but to some degree, it's I'll have the American dream.
Right.
That will be what that I will benefit from because I have walked by faith and trusted God. So that's the issue that we have to come to grips with, because you go around the world and folks do not have the experience that we have here.
Not in America.
They do not have that experience, nor do they expect it. Well, and what's the assumption that we make if the end result of our walking out of our faith is, to coin Roosevelt's term, what was it, a chicken in every pot, and I'm forgetting now what. But there's this expectation of some kind of material prosperity, and I'm becoming more and more convinced. I like those things. They're nice to have. I enjoy them. None of us want to not have them if they're available to us. But they're not the measure of our lives, nor should they be our expectation. Because that's not what God has promised. That's the challenge for us living in, being strangers and pilgrims in the world in which we live. Okay?
Yeah.
When Israel went into Babylon, God said, buy land, buy houses, infiltrate the people. You're going to be here 70 years, you may as well enjoy it while you're here. Okay? But know this, you are going to go home one of these days. Okay? And so, yes, there are seasons of that, but that is not our expectation. That is not equating with a person who's living out a righteous life. And isn't that the end game of what was happening in Job?
Yeah,
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 it was.
it was.
That was the end game. Now, I've just done a cursory reading of it at this point. But at one point, Job's response to God is, you know what? I'd heard about you before,
Yeah,
but now I see you in a whole different light.
yeah.
Right.
Okay?
Wow.
I have a vision of you now I didn't have before.